How much do you truly know about those closest to you? The ones who share not just your home, but your deepest secrets, your most vulnerable moments, your unconditional love? This haunting question would eventually consume Elaine Monroe, a woman who believed she had built her life on an unshakable foundation of family values, unwavering loyalty, and absolute trust. But sometimes, the deadliest betrayals lurk in the spaces we consider safest. In the autumn of 2023, Elaine Monroe's death at age 67 sent ripples through her community. But it wasn't her passing that would ultimately shake her family to its core. It was what she left behind, a final act that would expose a web of deception so intricate, so devastating, that it would forever change how people viewed the bonds of family. The discovery of a modified $1.7 million insurance policy, naming an unexpected beneficiary, would unravel a story of betrayal that no one could have anticipated. As Elaine's final days drew to a close, she harbored a secret of her own, one that would only emerge after her death. Her silence concealed a truth so devastating that its revelation would force everyone to question everything they thought they knew about love, loyalty, and the price of trust. Welcome to True Crime Stories Archive, your gateway to the chilling world of real-life horror. Here, we delve into the darkest corners of humanity, unearthing terrifying stories of true crime that will leave you sleeping with the lights on. Before we continue with this haunting tale of familial betrayal, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more compelling true crime stories delivered daily. The story of Elaine Monroe begins not with her death, but with her remarkable journey of resilience. Born into humble circumstances in the mid-1950s, Elaine learned early that life's most valuable lessons came through perseverance and determination. Nothing was handed to her, every achievement was earned through unwavering dedication and an iron will that would later become both her greatest strength and, perhaps, her fatal flaw. Elaine's early adult life seemed to follow a path many would consider traditional. Her first marriage, to a man she believed would be her lifelong partner, brought the promise of stability and the joy of motherhood with the birth of their daughter Cassie. Together, they painted a portrait of the American dream, their shared aspirations reaching toward a future filled with possibility. But fate had other plans. Her husband's unexpected death left Elaine a young widow, forcing her to navigate the treacherous waters of single parenthood with nothing but her determination as a compass. In the wake of this tragedy, Elaine emerged as a force to be reckoned with in the real estate industry. Her natural intuition for property values, combined with an unwavering work ethic, transformed her from a grieving widow into one of the most respected names in local real estate. Each closed deal, every successful negotiation, served as a building block in the fortress of security she was determined to construct around her daughter Cassie. But success in business didn't automatically translate to success in parenting. As Cassie grew, the dynamics between mother and daughter became increasingly complex. Elaine's determination to provide everything she never had inadvertently created a gulf between them. While she showered Cassie with material comforts, from premium education to lavish holidays, something essential remained missing from their relationship. The harder Elaine worked to forge a meaningful connection with her daughter, the more Cassie seemed to pull away. Where Elaine saw loving guidance, Cassie perceived controlling behavior. When Elaine offered advice, Cassie heard criticism. Their interactions became a delicate dance of misunderstandings and unmet expectations, each party moving to a different rhythm, unable to find synchronicity. It was during this period of emotional turbulence that Marlon Jones entered Elaine's life. At 53, 13 years her junior, Marlon appeared to be everything Elaine had been missing. His charismatic presence and apparent devotion seemed to fill the emotional void that had been growing in her life. Despite raised eyebrows from friends and associates, who questioned the wisdom of a successful woman involving herself with a man of questionable financial stability, Elaine allowed herself to believe in the possibility of love again. On the surface, their relationship appeared to provide the perfect balance. Elaine's practical stability complemented Marlon's dynamic personality. Yet beneath this seemingly ideal partnership, subtle warning signs began to emerge. Marlon's stories occasionally contained inconsistencies that Elaine's sharp mind caught but her hopeful heart dismissed. His attentiveness sometimes felt calculated, his responses rehearsed. There were moments when his gaze would linger too long on luxury items in their home, or his questions about her finances seemed just a touch too specific. The complexity of Elaine's household dynamics grew more intricate with each passing month. While she struggled to strengthen her bond with Cassie, she simultaneously battled to silence the whispers of doubt about Marlon's true intentions. Cassie, now an adult, had developed into someone who seemed to thrive on attention yet rarely reciprocated the emotional investment others made in her relationships. This trait particularly manifested in her relationship with her mother, where years of privileged upbringing had cultivated a sense of entitlement rather than gratitude. The mother-daughter conversations that Elaine had once hoped would bring them closer often dissolved into tense exchanges. Cassie would bristle at what she perceived as her mother's interference, while Elaine's attempts at guidance were met with increasing resistance. Despite the mounting friction, Elaine's maternal love never wavered. She held on to the hope that time would eventually bridge the growing chasm between them, that maturity would help Cassie recognize the depth of her mother's devotion. The first hairline fractures in Elaine's carefully constructed world appeared almost imperceptibly. Like fine cracks in a pristine mirror, they were easy to overlook at first glance. Marlon's once constant charm began showing signs of wear, revealing glimpses of something less appealing underneath his polished exterior. His attentiveness, which had once seemed so sincere, took on a mechanical quality, as if he were performing a role rather than expressing genuine care. Meanwhile, Cassie's behavior became increasingly difficult to rationalize. Her actions often left Elaine feeling emotionally drained, yet she continued to make excuses for her daughter's conduct, attributing it to phases that would eventually pass. Elaine, ever the optimist, clung to her belief in the power of unconditional love to overcome any obstacle. After all, she had rebuilt her life once before in the face of tragedy. Surely she could weather these storms as well. What Elaine couldn't see was that these seemingly separate challenges in her life were actually interconnected in ways she couldn't have imagined. The subtle glances between Marlon and Cassie, the way their laughter would sometimes linger a beat too long, the casual touches that appeared innocent but carried hidden meaning, all these signs were present, yet invisible to someone who refused to see them. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the atmosphere in Elaine's home grew increasingly charged with unspoken tensions. The air itself seemed to crackle with secrets, each room holding whispers of betrayal that would soon come to light. Yet Elaine, despite her business acumen and normally sharp instincts, remained blind to the truth that was unfolding right before her eyes. The relationship between Marlon Jones and Cassie Monroe did not blossom overnight. Instead, it took root in the shadowy spaces between propriety and betrayal, growing like a poisonous vine in the fertile soil of opportunity and shared deceit. Their clandestine connection began with seemingly innocent moments, shared glances across the dinner table, private jokes exchanged in hushed tones, casual encounters in hallways that lasted just seconds too long. Marlon, ever the master manipulator, recognized in Cassie something he could exploit, a deep-seated need for validation that her mother's love had somehow never managed to fulfill. He wielded his charm like a weapon, carefully targeting Cassie's vulnerabilities with surgical precision. Each compliment, each moment of attention, was calculated to draw her further into his web of manipulation. For Cassie, the attraction to Marlon represented more than mere physical desire. In her mind, their forbidden relationship became a form of rebellion against what she perceived as her mother's suffocating presence. Every secret moment shared with Marlon felt like a victory, a way to assert her independence from Elaine's influence. She convinced herself that their connection was special, different, somehow justified despite its inherent betrayal. Their secret encounters multiplied, each one more daring than the last. They orchestrated careful coincidences, arriving at family gatherings separately but leaving at the same time, creating opportunities for brief meetings under the guise of mundane household activities. Their deception was a carefully choreographed dance, performed right under Elaine's nose. Yet Elaine was not as oblivious as they believed. Her instincts, honed by years of reading people in business dealings, began to pick up on subtle discrepancies. The way conversations would abruptly cease when she entered a room. The strange tension that seemed to crackle in the air when Marlon and Cassie were together. The odd glances they exchanged when they thought no one was watching. These small observations accumulated like grains of sand, slowly building into a mountain of suspicion she could no longer ignore. The revelation of their betrayal didn't come to Elaine in one dramatic moment. Instead, it was a gradual awakening, a slow-motion collapse of everything she had believed about her family. Each new piece of evidence she discovered felt like another nail in the coffin of her trust. Yet, even as the truth became undeniable, Elaine chose a path that neither Marlon nor Cassie could have anticipated. Instead of confronting them with her knowledge, Elaine retreated into silence. Her pain became a private thing, locked away behind a facade of normalcy. But beneath this calm exterior, she was formulating a plan, one that would ensure justice would be served, even if she wasn't around to witness it. In the quiet sanctuary of her attorney's office, away from the watchful eyes of her family, Elaine made a decision that would alter the course of justice. With steady hands and unwavering resolve, she modified her life insurance policy, redirecting the substantial $1.7 million benefit away from Marlon. Instead, she named Althea Carter, her loyal housekeeper of 3 decades, as the sole beneficiary. Althea had been more than just an employee in Elaine's household. Over 30 years of service, she had become a silent guardian, a keeper of secrets, and perhaps the only person who truly understood the complexity of Elaine's world. She had witnessed the evolution of the Monroe household, from the joyful early years through the subtle shifts that preceded its eventual unraveling. Her position had afforded her a unique perspective, close enough to observe every detail, yet removed enough to maintain objectivity. Through all the years of service, Althea had demonstrated an unwavering loyalty that stood in stark contrast to the betrayal brewing within Elaine's own family. She had been there through every milestone, every triumph, and every setback. When others saw only Elaine's success, Althea had witnessed her private struggles, her moments of doubt, her silent tears. This deep understanding of Elaine's life made her not just a servant, but a confidant, someone who could be trusted to honor Elaine's final wishes. As Elaine's health began to decline, the changes were subtle at first. A persistent fatigue crept into her once energetic demeanor. Her appetite waned, leaving meals half-eaten on expensive china plates. What began as occasional dizzy spells evolved into regular bouts of weakness that left her struggling to maintain her usual routine. Her once vibrant complexion took on a sickly pallor, and headaches became her constant companion. The progression of her illness puzzled medical professionals. Despite numerous consultations and a battery of tests, doctors struggled to pinpoint the exact cause of her deteriorating condition. Each specialist seemed to offer a different theory, yet none could provide a definitive diagnosis or effective treatment. While Elaine's strength ebbed away, the mystery of her illness deepened. Althea, with her years of careful observation, was among the first to notice that something about Elaine's decline seemed unnatural. Her suspicions were aroused by subtle patterns, the way certain symptoms appeared to worsen after specific meals, the curious timing of Marlon's solicitous attention, and most disturbing of all, Cassie's unusual detachment from her mother's suffering. From her position within the household, Althea began documenting inconsistencies that others might have missed. She noticed how Marlon's displays of concern seemed rehearsed, his worried expressions falling away the moment he thought no one was watching. More troubling were the whispered conversations between Marlon and Cassie that would abruptly cease whenever anyone approached. Their body language spoke volumes, too familiar, too intimate for a stepfather and stepdaughter. Most disturbing of all were the occasions when Althea observed Cassie preparing her mother's tea. Something about these moments felt wrong. The furtive glances, the careful measuring of unknown substances, the way Elaine's symptoms often intensified after consuming these beverages. While others attributed Elaine's declining health to natural causes, Althea's instincts screamed that something more sinister was at play. As Elaine's condition deteriorated, the dynamics within the household shifted. While genuine concern radiated from the household staff and Elaine's few close friends, Cassie's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would brush off inquiries about her mother's health with casual dismissals, her indifference striking a discordant note against the backdrop of general worry. Marlon, meanwhile, began making subtle inquiries about Elaine's financial affairs, his questions carrying an undertone of anticipation rather than concern. The final months of Elaine's life were marked by a profound physical decline that seemed to accelerate with each passing week. Her once steady gait became uncertain, her sharp mind occasionally clouded by confusion. Yet even as her body weakened, her spirit remained unbroken. She maintained her dignity with remarkable grace, never letting on that she knew about the betrayal unfolding within her own home. When death finally claimed Elaine Monroe at age 67, it appeared on the surface to be the natural conclusion to a mysterious illness. The community mourned the loss of a respected businesswoman, friends grieved for a loyal confidant, and her household staff wept for a kind employer. But beneath the veneer of natural causes, questions began to surface. The breakthrough came with the autopsy report. What appeared to be a tragic but natural death was revealed to be something far more sinister. Toxicology tests detected traces of poison in Elaine's system, not a single lethal dose, but evidence of prolonged, systematic poisoning. This discovery transformed a sad but seemingly straightforward death into a criminal investigation. For Althea Carter, the toxicology results confirmed her worst suspicions. Armed with months of careful observations and detailed notes about the household's dynamics, she approached law enforcement. Her testimony painted a chilling picture of calculated murder, one where a daughter and her stepfather had conspired to slowly poison the woman who had trusted them most. The investigation gained momentum rapidly. Detectives pieced together a timeline that revealed the calculated nature of the crime. Bank records showed suspicious purchases, security footage captured clandestine meetings, and phone records exposed a web of communication between Marlon and Cassie that went far beyond normal family interaction. Marlon's true nature began to emerge as investigators dug deeper into his past. His charm had masked a history of failed relationships and financial troubles. His marriage to Elaine had been less about love and more about accessing her wealth. The detectives discovered that he had been meticulously planning this betrayal almost from the beginning, gradually manipulating both mother and daughter to serve his ultimate goal. The evidence mounted: receipts for poison disguised as household products, carefully documented patterns of administration, and most damning of all, text messages between Marlon and Cassie that, while coded, clearly outlined their deadly conspiracy. What had seemed like a natural death was revealed to be an expertly orchestrated murder, designed to appear as a gradual decline in health. When confronted by police, the facade of family unity crumbled. Cassie, faced with overwhelming evidence, broke down under questioning. In tearful confessions, she revealed how Marlon had systematically manipulated her, playing on her insecurities and resentment toward her mother. He had convinced her that Elaine's death was necessary for their future together, promising love and wealth once her mother was out of the picture. The investigation revealed their plan in horrifying detail. They had chosen a slow-acting poison, administering it in small doses over months to mimic natural illness. Each cup of tea, each meal served with false concern, had been an instrument of murder. They had counted on Elaine's trust in them, using her love as a weapon against her. The criminal trial that followed became one of the most sensational cases in local history. The courtroom was packed daily with spectators, drawn by the shocking nature of the crime and the complex family dynamics it revealed. At the center of it all sat Marlon Jones and Cassie Monroe, their appearances markedly changed from the confident conspirators they had once been. The prosecution's case was methodically constructed, revealing layer upon layer of premeditation. Forensic experts detailed how the poison had been administered over time, explaining how each dose contributed to Elaine's slow decline. Medical testimony illustrated the suffering she had endured, the headaches, nausea, and weakness that had plagued her final months, all directly attributed to the poison her own family had given her. Althea's testimony proved particularly powerful. Her quiet dignity and detailed observations provided crucial context to the technical evidence. She described the subtle changes she had noticed in the household, the suspicious behaviors, and most importantly, the transformation she had witnessed in both Marlon and Cassie. Her words painted a vivid picture of betrayal that resonated deeply with the jury. The defense team attempted to present Cassie as a victim of manipulation, arguing that Marlon had exploited her emotional vulnerabilities. They portrayed her as a young woman desperate for approval, who had fallen under the influence of a calculating predator. While there was some truth to this characterization, the evidence of her willing participation was undeniable. Marlon's defense strategy, by contrast, centered on complete denial. He maintained his innocence throughout the trial, attempting to shift all blame to Cassie. His performance in the witness box revealed glimpses of his true nature. The charm would slip, showing moments of cold calculation that chilled those present in the courtroom. The evidence against them proved insurmountable. The prosecution presented financial records showing Marlon's research into poisons, surveillance footage capturing suspicious purchases, and damning text messages between the conspirators. Perhaps most compelling were the recordings of Cassie's confession, where she detailed their murderous scheme in her own words. As the trial reached its conclusion, the jury's deliberation was relatively brief given the complexity of the case. The verdict resonated through the silent courtroom. Cassie Monroe was found guilty of second-degree murder. The court acknowledged her role as both perpetrator and victim of manipulation, resulting in a sentence of life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years. When the sentence was pronounced, Cassie's composure finally broke, the reality of her actions and their consequences seemingly hitting her for the first time. Marlon Jones received a harsher judgment. Found guilty of first-degree murder, the court recognized him as the architect of this heinous scheme. The judge's words during sentencing were particularly scathing, condemning him for exploiting family bonds for financial gain and manipulating a daughter into participating in her mother's murder. His sentence was life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would spend the remainder of his days behind bars. The aftermath of the trial revealed the true genius of Elaine's final act. The $1.7 million insurance policy, which Marlon had so desperately schemed to obtain, was legally transferred to Althea Carter. This final decision not only denied the killers their prize but also ensured that Elaine's legacy would be preserved by someone who had truly cared for her. In the years following the trial, Cassie's prison letters revealed a woman consumed by guilt and regret. Her writings spoke of a desperate need for forgiveness that she knew would never come, a daughter finally understanding the depth of her betrayal when it was far too late. Meanwhile, Marlon's time in prison showed no such redemption. He remained unrepentant, his only apparent regret being that his scheme had failed. Elaine Monroe's story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers lurk not in the shadows of strangers, but in the hearts of those we trust most. Her tragic end, while devastating, also demonstrated remarkable foresight and strength. Even in death, she managed to ensure that justice would prevail, her final act of changing her insurance beneficiary setting in motion the events that would ultimately expose the truth. Today, Althea Carter continues to honor Elaine's memory, using part of the insurance money to establish a foundation helping victims of domestic abuse and family violence. The foundation serves as a lasting testament to Elaine's spirit, turning a story of betrayal into one of hope and healing for others. This case stands as a stark reminder that trust, once broken, can reveal the darkest aspects of human nature. It teaches us that while love and loyalty are precious, they must be given wisely, for sometimes those closest to us can harbor the deadliest intentions. Thank you for joining us for another episode of True Crime Stories Archive. If you found this story compelling, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light, ensuring that victims like Elaine Monroe are never forgotten. Remember, the truth, no matter how painful, must always be told.